So folks, I am recording a webinar. You can share it with your students or anyone for that matter. All right. Okay, Alex. Let me see here. Some folks, just to make sure. Engineering Explorers, raise your hands if you've got it, folks. Tom Reynolds. Thomas Leach, Mike Emmett, raise your hands if you would, folks, just so we know that we've got everybody. Everybody keep their hands up, I guess is what I'm asking. That way I get a sense. See, I get a percentage mark on that. So, like Steven, I don't know if you can hear me, Telegraph. Steven, can you hear me? Thomas, Tom Reynolds, if you guys can hear me, please raise your virtual hands. John Mycroft, Fred. Interesting. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, welcome to the competition. I will explain how to go over the software tonight. Goals are software and how to do the lessons. I'm probably not going to comment on the rules. We want to make sure the Gamma folks and that all gets put out exactly the same way. So please, I'd ask if you got any questions on that. We're going to hold off. All right? Does that make sense, everybody? Hope it does. Okay, I'm going to put everybody's hands down. Raise that virtual hand again. You can also write questions. If you do, please interrupt and ask. All right? Now, okay, real quickly, I am a teacher, like many of the folks here are. I'm sure we have a few students as well. I also help co-found Fly to Learn. All right, and by now everybody knows teaching engineering. For the longest time, though, I leave the slide up here, remind me that I started teaching engineering at a prep school. I teach a K through 12 school here in Charlotte. We're about 1,400 kids total. We're a prep school, and most of my experience has been with middle schoolers and high schoolers. I started teaching engineering, including flight and robotics and bridges, about 1989-90, circa 1989. All right, I've been making an argument for teaching engineering in schools. And also, because of getting involved with Fly to Learn, to think about careers in aviation. If we do have students on here, there are a lot of really great opportunities out there. The average pilot's age is something like 56. And so if that's the case, you're going to need it. Yes, there is audio. Tom doesn't have his audio working. Shoot, here we go. Yes, everyone can also see me. Hang on one second. All right. So I would just encourage the students here to think about these, and for women, and there's a big push to get more people in the flight and get people from everywhere into flight. Okay, and that was another thing about jobs. All right, real quickly, when we started developing this, I'm going to just get to a couple important points, just so you'll know. For the curriculum was to teach engineering. It's got an aviation theme. All right, and I'll answer. I think I got a hand raised, so I may have a question, but give me 1 second. So you always had trade-off between academic rigor and making it engaging with the kids. The first half of it's going to stress the scientific science, and the second half is more the engineering. It's obviously aviation. You don't need joysticks for it. And we purposely are running the older version of X-Plane. If we ran the newer one, it wouldn't run on most of your computers. I'm trying to keep the price down. The reason you're getting the software given to you is through the support of Gamma, and we really, really appreciate it. Okay. All right, the dial-in number. Hang on. We have folks with some audio issues. Bear with me, everybody. Like I say, if you don't have hang on. Bear with me 1 second there. I don't want to do that. I just sent the phone message out for those people who couldn't hear me before. Hopefully they can see that and they will dial it and use that access code. All right, Fred has got a question. Let me unmute him. Fred, what's your question? Or I can't get you. You've got your hand raised. If you'll type the question for me, it'd be great. Fred, you have your question. Raise your hand, please. Or write it to me if you would, man. Okay. While we wait on those folks, maybe get caught up here. I mentioned this earlier. There's another question here. Hopefully this will. Tom? I can hear you, Tom. Well, that muted Tom. I can hear him back. I'm not sure why he can't hear me, but it's kind of strange. Okay. There's 3 parts to the FTL program when you use them in your classroom, folks. Explain 9, student teacher lesson worksheets, and we got presentation materials for you, including these webinars. Presentation slides, videos, and webinars. All right, I'm usually doing webinars with this a lot, so if you want a webinar, let me know. We'll run one for you. Okay, as far as the software goes, the Explain actually has 2 parts of the software. It has both Explain, which is a flight simulator, and Plane Maker, and that allows you to create your own virtual airplanes, and it's very, very amazing. All right, so that's a very powerful, the Plane Maker part of it, and that's what we really got me involved with using this. I use Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's a very nice program. But so you understand as you're teaching the kids this was all designed by Austin Myers. And what he basically did is he calls it blade theory. It reminds me of finite element analysis, where you take the wing, you cut it in, and you optimize. He figured it out. It made the most sense. So each wing segment gets cut into 10 pieces. He applies the law of aerodynamics to each piece, puts them all back together, and says, this is how the wing will fly. It tends to be very accurate doing it that way. What Microsoft did, and the people who made Flight Simulator, which is a very good product, is they did it the other way. They took a Cessna, for example, Cessna 172. They went out and had huge data tables, and they said, if you do this, this, and this, the airplane, how does it respond? And so they made this huge table, so it's lookup. But the important difference there is, if I would change the wings on a Microsoft airplane, it wouldn't fly any differently. X-plane, you change the wings on using Plane Maker, the plane flies differently, and you'll see that. All right? So it's fundamentally, it does things Plane Maker can't do, wasn't designed to do. First 10 lessons, the first 6 lessons are more the science of flight. Can't very well do the application of science if you don't understand that. The final 4 lessons are an engineering theme. Okay? We're going to practice STEM skills, data collection, data analysis, engineering trade-offs. We do a lot with the engineering trade-offs in this. And in the final lesson, students design their own airplane. Okay. All right. Someone just asked, hey, will there be a makeup session for Wednesday? I can't make it then. Yeah, and I'll probably offer another session too. I'm going to send it out. If you can't make it this week, we'll do another one. All right. Maybe one Tuesday night. Just a long 2-hour Tuesday night one for all people who couldn't make it Monday and Wednesday. All right, sample FTL lesson. You get an introduction, show video, hand out student worksheets, fly to learn. That's basically what we do when we do this. Here are the 10 first flight. The goal of that, if you get the curriculum, and I would really have the curriculum, is just explain using the software, and then talking about a lot about really kinetic and potential energy, and then and the importance of that in flight. Your kids, if they do the lesson, will understand why it's so dangerous to be in an airplane that's both low and slow, unless that's your intent, you're trying to land it. Otherwise, you don't want to be low and slow. And it's really just because you don't have any energy in the system. All right. Now, so there's the first flight. And the very first lesson, we get the lesson plan's gone through 29 iterations, last count. I'm to that point now where we make a change to fix something and we end up messing something else up with it. And we have more lessons, more advanced lessons down the road for folks, those that are interested. But I would say on that first lesson, if you notice, there's all these details right here. We tell you exactly step by step what to go into. So if your students tell you they don't understand it, ask them to show you where they don't understand in the written part of the lesson. After the first lesson, say by the second lesson, I'll pull that up right here. We started then breaking out exactly quick flight setup, go hit this airport, this Cessna, click on settings, test data, payload, takeoff, right? So it gets very clear, and I would say to the teachers that are teaching this, I generally ask them to show me where they don't understand in the directions. And many times they'll now sit and read the directions and they don't have the same question. But having said that, X-Plane isn't the most obvious setup. It's the user interface is not the friendliest thing in the world. And so anyways, where you're going to end up spending a lot of your time with your students and get everything set up is quick flight setup. And I'll show you, I'll pull up the software here in a minute and show you get up. But when you get there, you want to put Laui, and that's the airport you want to be in. It's 2 mountain ranges, so the plane, it's easy. It's surprisingly easy to get lost up in the air. I am not a pilot, but I soloed an airplane. And I flew over an area that I've lived for many years. And once I got up in the air, I couldn't figure out where I was the first few flights. After a while, it's like anything, you get used to it. But when you start, it's easy to get lost. So we chose Laui because there's 2 mountain ranges, and it's kind of like 2 fences to guide you going in the right direction. Next, you want to select the, as they're doing this, the 172. I would encourage you not to let them just fly every plane there is right off the bat. Then it becomes more of a video game. And also, we have Laui. We can put it in there. We have Cessna 172. Make sure you're at night, 8, 10 o'clock. You don't want it to be 18 or 22 o'clock because then it's the middle of the night and it'll be dark. And then CAVOK, that's just clear weather. All right. So that's how we have that look. All right. So you're going to go back to that quick flight setup. Here it is. And then there's 3 steps, and I'm going to walk you through the software here in a moment. There's 3 steps to any software. To taking out, 3 steps to taking out. You're going to pause it, hit P for pause it, then hit the brakes on and turn on the throttle. Push in this throttle. Think of it like a gas pedal. You push in that black button. Don't touch the red buttons. There's a reason they're red. Push that black button in. All right. When you do that, the brake light will go off. That button's all the way in. Unpause it, and you'll go rolling down the runway. Okay? It will pull. You'll have to adjust for that a little bit because in a real airplane it does. All right, so let me go ahead. I'm going to pull up X-Plane and show you what I'm talking about. Now the thing with X-Plane, folks. Okay, here's what we got. First thing, I start this up. This was pause, it wasn't. If you get this message, it means you don't have the disk in there. All right? So let me go ahead and, okay. So let me go ahead and reset this. All right, so I'm going to do whenever you get this error message, it means I didn't put a disk in my own machine. So I'm just going to quit it, start back up real fast. Bear with me 1 second. Here we go. We're waiting for that pickup. All right, now let me go ahead and pull this up. Okay, we got a question. Should we get our own software also? Yes, please, if you can. All right, so here we are ready to take off. But watch what I'm doing here. All right, and remember too, because the internet, this gets choppy for when we fly this. So it's not that the software is this choppy, it's because the internet makes it look that way. But when I go to take off, I click here, I make sure this white square is here. We'll explain that in a minute. I'm gonna hit pause. See, there's the pause. Here's B for brakes. I can hit B for brakes or click on brakes. Then using my down arrow key, pushing the throttle. So there's 3 things here. I want to pause this, turn off the brakes, throttle always in. You always take off an airplane full blast. Okay? So those are your 3 steps. This is also in the handout. If you hit the A key, you're outside the airplane. All right? Now, in that white square, if you watch this pointer in here, all right, let's unpause it here a second. See how I turn this, that cross? It causes the control surface of the airplane to, all right, let me unpause it. Now, I'm going to try to get back down the runway. It may look choppy on your screen. What I want you to realize, though, is this pointer, when you go outside the square there, it isn't doing anything anymore. It only goes, the range of its motions is within that white square. Also, if it goes away, just re-click on your mouse. That's probably why it went away. It doesn't also show if you have a joystick already. But if you got a joystick, then you're probably not using your mouse to fly the airplane. So I'm going to pause and fly. So there I pause. I hit the A key. I'm looking the outside of my airplane. I hit the slash. You can even see the left vectors in the airplane. Okay. Raise your hand if you can see the plane right now off the ground with the green lift vectors. Raise your hand if you can see that, folks. That way I want to know if we're all, how we doing here. All right. Okay, good. Everybody can see that. Now, I'm going to come back here again. Let's go through taking off, and I'll show you the controls, everything on this one more time. So here we go again. Settings, I go up to the top. The menu may not show up for you. If you don't see the choices up there, like there's no menu choices now, but when I put my pointer up there, they'll show up. Then I'll go to Settings, Quick Flight Setup. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a call through here. Hang on, this is someone trying to do fly learn is what I'm guessing. Bear with me 1 second here. Bear with me, folks. Well, I have no idea who that was. So we're just going to have to, I'm sorry. I won't try to have that call. I think that might be someone else trying to get in our webinar right now. Hopefully they'll leave me a message later. Okay. So let's try that one more time. Okay. Now, go up to menu choice. Might not see it. Go up to the mouse, hit settings, quick flight setup, then select. Make sure you're in Laui. You don't have to change it. I've already highlighted Laui. We got the right airplane, 8 o'clock. And then we just hit X. Well, that takes us right back out. Excuse me. Settings, quick flight setup. And if I hit runway 8, for example, and go to this airport. There we go. Boom. There I am. Runway 8. I'm ready to go. Okay. So here I go. The 3 steps again. I'm going to hit pause. Turn off my brakes. I can hit B for brake or push it in. I can use my up or down arrow keys to get to the throttle. I'm pushing the throttle in. Now I'm going to go back up to the cross. Hit P for unpausing it. I'm going to start going down the runway. It's going to pull left, so I might have to pull a right. Keep it right on that crosshairs. I got people raising their hands, so I'll answer those questions in a minute. I'm going to keep it right on the crosshairs. Waits to 60 or 70. Again, it might look choppy on your screen. Take off here. I'll pause. All right, let me see if I can get some questions here answered. Yes, Engineering Explorers. Hello, can you hear me? Let me put their hands down. Let me ask somebody else. Yeah, John, question. Hello, John. Got your hand up. Any questions?
Oh, no.
All right. Okay, I'm going to put everybody's hands down, and then put your hand back up if you have a question. All right, I've got some written ones. Let's see this. Oh, no worries. Okay. How many people have X-Plane at home ready to run on their computers? Raise your hand right now. Okay, great. We got more than half. Go ahead, try taking off, folks. Go ahead, try taking off. If you hit the A key, it'll take your airplane. You can see my plane is barely off the ground. All right. John, your hand's up. Do you have a question, John? John, you have a question? Nope. All right, no worries. Took it down. Cool. All right. And Najee, do you have a question? Do you have a question?
Give me a second. Let me just exit out of the software. Not at the moment, no.
All right. Great. Then no. Okay, we have a question on there. All right, good. All right. Now, so that's how you take off. Have your kids practice taking off. For the teachers out there, if you're introducing, you haven't introduced it yet, sometimes I let them just try to take off the first few times to get it out of their system. Because everybody wants to fly. I get that. All right. Now, I'm going to pause that. Let's go on to the next part of this. So you go ahead and you're taking off. the instruments you need on the airplane that you're really going to use mainly is your airspeed indicator, and that tells you how fast you're going in the air. There is a difference between actual and indicated depending what the winds are. Attitude indicator, but we're going to use some other instruments later to measure the actual wind airspeed, so don't worry about that too much. Attitude indicator, a lot of blue, you're going up, a lot of brown, you're going down. Altimeter, remember the altimeter measures, like this says, little hands 1,000, big hands in the hundreds, but it's up from sea level. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. This little hand's nearly 2,000. This big hand's at 900. So you could say this is at 1,900 feet. But we're just right off the ground. I mean, look, a few feet off the ground. So it's not how many feet off the ground it is. It's your feet above sea level. It is dependent on your barometric pressure. So pilots go in and set their barometric pressure on their airplane to make sure it's right. And you can see it right here is at 29 point something. So the pilot sets it there and then knows, hey, this airport is at 1,800 feet. When he sets the barometric pressure, it better show 1,800 feet on that altimeter. But also for pilots, it's easy to forget, especially in a stressful situation. You're not 2,000 feet off the ground. You're 2,000 feet above sea level, and that mountain up ahead looks to me to be about 3,000 feet above sea level. So you'd fly right into it. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. We go to the mountains just a few hours from here, and pilots, especially in the early days of flight, would occasionally run into mountains because of that mistake. All right, then you have turn indicators down here. Don't really use these instruments so much. It's these three top ones you're going to use a lot. As far as lessons go, this is one of the very few times where you just have the kids draw in what their instruments are reading. Normally, you're going to see we collect data and we get very quantitative. We don't get qualitative on us. All right, now, what this does is the kids fly the airplane. In that first lesson, what you're doing is you're taking the airplane out. Bear with me. Let's say I go back settings, quick flight setup, and I'm going to take final approach, 3 nautical miles. Here I am flying the airplane. Now, watch what my airspeeds do. If I point the nose down, this needle, and I'll pause it in a minute because in case yours is being really choppy, that needle's nearly 120 knots going down. All right? Or yeah, it's 120 knots. And I've lost some altitude, actually, at this point. Now, if I unpause it and start climbing up, I'm going to actually start gaining altitude. Okay, I've gained. I'm now at 3,000 feet. But my airspeed that was at 120 is now at 65. The gist of that first lesson is energy, as you all know, many of you are science teachers or a technical background. Energy is not created or destroyed. Energy is not able to be created or destroyed. It just changes shapes. And so what we're doing is we're trading off here potential energy, altitude, for kinetic energy or airspeed. So if you go faster, so in this case, we're gaining potential energy by gaining a bunch of altitude, but what did we give up? We gave up all that kinetic energy. All right? So if a pilot wants to go faster, they can point the nose down, right? And the plane will go faster. If the pilot wants to go slower, you can pull the nose up, it'll slow you down, but you're also going to gain altitude. So it's these trade-offs. Any questions about that? All right. Now, we're going to start the second lesson. If there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead on the second lesson because this allows you to do some neat things in this program. First of all, you'll notice that when we do this flight, it's going to be looking at weight, the 4 forces on the airplane. The first force in lesson 2, we're going to look at weight. We're going to explain what weight and difference between weight and mass. We'll do our test flights, looking at weight versus takeoff distance, but look how we now tell the kids, hey, there's flight setup, here's airport, here's collected test data, payload, takeoff. I'll show you all in a minute, but at least the kids, if they look at the manual, we should be able to figure, this will help them keep them very explicit controls. All right, the payload on this, let me go bring it up. If you go up to aircraft and you go in the weight and fuel, you can just change it right here. And what we do is we tell them the payload weight starts at 300, then we make it 600. It could be 601, 900. We look at how that impacts takeoff distance. And that's great, but I got a question for you. I'm flying this airplane. When do I know I've taken off? So let me go quick flight setups. Real quickly, I'm going to go take off again. Go to 8. All right, went to 8. All right, so I'm going to pause this real quick. Hit my brake. Pushing my throttle. I'm going to start taking off, right? And again, it'll be choppy on the internet if you get it, but you go to take off. All right. And my airspeed's going to go, and I'm going to push the nose down so I get my airspeed up here. For some reason, for some reason my throttle wasn't pushed quite all the way in. Now let's go. So I knew immediately when I flew it. It was like, no, that's too lazy. So here I am. I'm going down the runway. Actually, I'm going to push the nose down so I can go faster down this runway just to demonstrate. Now I'm going to try to take off. Okay, good question. Am I off the ground or not? Well, there I am, but I don't know where I took off. And it would be really hard if it wasn't for this next part I'm going to show you. And that's this right here. We can collect 131 data points. Now, we're never going to, but this software is actually used in industry, and they do. So the default one you're going to usually be doing is speed, distance traveled, and landing gear forces. Landing speed's going to tell us the speed of the aircraft. This is going to give us the distance traveled. Landing gear for vertical forces, what does that mean? Well, just a little bit of Newtonian physics here, if you think about it. If you're sitting on a chair, for those people, students, whatever, sitting on a chair, your mass times gravity is a force, and it's going basically towards the center of the earth. It's going down in this case. Well, what stops you from going down? Well, the earth exerts an opposite force, and it goes right through the legs of that chair you're sitting on. So that leg actually gets vertical forces on them. But once you're off the ground, there's no vertical forces on the legs of that chair anymore. If you pick that chair up, and I could lift the chair off the ground, somebody grabbed one arm of the chair and the other arm, there'd be no load on the legs of that chair anymore. They'd go to zero. We define that on the airplane when the landing gear vertical forces are all zero. We're going to say we're going to say, hey, it's off the ground. Now up at the top corner here, you have graphical and cockpit display. Well, the cockpit display, like here's if it's flying without a cockpit display, right? If I put it on there I actually get the values right there. All right? So there's the values for the cockpit. All right? And then, let's go back. So that values come up because I clicked in cockpit display. We're going to get the graphical in a moment. So I even blow it up more. You can put all this data in there, which allows you, the students, to fly it. Now, what that really gives you is a snapshot of the airplane's performance. And occasionally that's all you really need. But it'd be really better if we could graph it. Because you don't want to be driving down here trying to figure out, well, when is the landing gear vertical forces, which aren't indicated here, where are the landing gear forces so I can do this? That's where this comes in. Where we clicked on data set, I'm going to show you in a minute, we can do data C, and we can actually graph it. And that's the power of this software, because now we can all agree, we can find out exactly when all the landing gear forces went to zero, and we decide we're going to define that as takeoff. That was a lot to cover there for a second, so let me just show you on maybe it'll help if I show you in the software, and then I'll answer questions, because that's a fair amount of stuff. So if I go to settings, data input output, I see speeds. And then if I don't have it here, I'm going to put distance traveled. Whoops, 21. And then this has wing lift and wing drag. For another experiment I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and look for Landing gear, vertical forces, 66. I don't need to enable to the internet or save it on a disk, so I'll get rid of it. So I just have this graphics. All right. And if you look up here, you can see, hey, my landing gear is all 0, which you can't see from that little script, but you'll see in a minute. So let me take off again. Quick flight setup, runway, takeoff 8. Pause it. Pushing the throttle. Go up. Turn off the brake. Unpause it. Let's go. Building up speed. All right, I'm pushing those down so I can build up speed a little bit faster. And for some reason my throttle didn't stay on. I'm kind of going loping down here, but it'll still be quicker this way. So I'm going to lift up, pause. Now I'll look outside. Oh, and see, I'm not on the ground yet. Shoot. Yes. Look at D. All right, let's drop this down a little bit. See if I can get down this runway faster. Now I've got pure throttle. I should get off the ground here in a minute. Get up to 70, 80. Now let's pull it back a little bit. Pause. Okay, I'm off the ground. So let's watch what happened. I go to data input output. I go to data C. And then I keep rolling down. This is over time until that landing gear gets to 0. And that's right at this point. To make it a little bit easier, I can remove some of the stuff. So in this case, I'm going to make keep the bottom V true at the bottom. You can barely see it's a little bit. So I've got this orange line is going to be distance traveled. This bluish line will be V true airspeed. And these red, yellow, and green are the landing gear. And when those reach 0, that's when I can say, hey, what is the distance traveled? What is the true airspeed? All right. Got to have some questions there. Any questions, folks? No questions? Wait a minute, we got maybe one here. Trying to see here. I got nope, no hands raised. Okay. Why don't I go through that one more time again, and then we'll go on to the next steps. Okay. So we want to see what our airplane does. We go settings, data input output. Pardon me. We have speeding, distance traveled in this case, landing gear. You can select any of these, folks. All right. I'll answer your question 1 second. I got one raised hand. Yay. Happy to see it. Here's the timeline. 01, 02. Then we go right here, right there. At 41.7 seconds, because remember it was sitting there for a while, so that's why the time's a little bit delayed and wrong. All right, and then I go up here, I see the orange line, I look at my orange line, distance traveled is 21 feet, and my airspeed, true miles per hour, ground speed was 79. I don't care which colors you pick on these things, as long as they just say consistent. All right. Yes, sir, what's your question?
I'm just wondering, all your gear numbers should be 0 in order to completely be confident that your plane has taken off, correct?
You're asking, should the 3 landing gear values be 0 and say that's taking off? The answer is yes. But distance traveled and true airspeed, no. Those are going to have values. Okay?
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Good question. Anybody else have a question on that? All right, then what you'll do on your worksheet, I'll pull that off, is you'll take off 298, 600, 900 pounds. You'll list what your true airspeed is and what your takeoff distance is. You're going to take the average takeoff distances on these. And what your students will find and what you suspect, the larger the mass of the airplane and therefore the greater the weight, the longer your takeoff distance is. And this explains why big airports need big long runways. And all right, why the new Airbus needs a huge runway. It's so big and massive an airplane. Yes, Fred just asked, should we isolate it to the Cessna 172? The answer is yes. All right, let's keep it simple. If you go to a modern, say Jetline or something to really demonstrate this, the controls are much more elaborate. So they're going to take the data, they're going to average the data, and then they'll graph it. And then there's some investigative questions. Also, after that, if you go into lesson 2 farther, there's a deeper question that says, well, what happens if you went somewhere where they didn't have gravity? Like if we sealed off a crater in the moon, on a moon, there's ice at the bottom of it. They're hoping on some of them. You begin to melt that ice, you got the top sealed off, you create an atmosphere. What's really kind of neat about that is we've done the calculations, and a human being, if they put wings on them, some kind of like artificial wings, you stir your arms in them, could fly, because the moon's 1/6 the gravity here on Earth. All right. This is also a good point for them to understand why wingsuits just don't work, because the problem for them to maintain lift, they have to go so fast because there's so much mass of the pilot and such a small aspect ratio. I actually get an aspect ratio with that too. You can explain to kids technically why those flying wingsuits that are really cool when people try to land, which is something they've tried to do for 5 decades at least. All right, but the math doesn't work. The only person who's pulled it off landing in a wingsuit flew into a bunch of boxes. All right, now, so you'll repeat that, you'll do loads. The next one is lift. And this lesson, we talk about lift in terms of takeoff and landing. But really what we're talking about with lift is we demonstrate it by stalling the airplane, by showing what the airplane doesn't do when it's flying and begins to fall out. Let me show you what I'm talking about on this. Let me go over here. All right, so say I get out of this. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go quick flight setup. I'm selecting my final approach. Got my airplane. All right, now I'm going to pause it. I'm going to go outside. So I hit A to go outside the airplane. I use my arrow keys to spin around. I hit slash. You see those green vectors. Some are pointed up on the tail. They're pointed down. How many people can see the green vectors on this Cessna 172? Raise your hand, please. These are the lift vectors on the airplane. If you can, when you do it on your own airplane, you're going to see a little red trip. Right? That's actually induced drag. And we're going to get into induced and parasitic drag in just another moment. But when you have lift, you have what's called induced. And that's the drag that's a result of lift, actually. But as you can see, a lot of lift to very little drag. So we'll take that trade-off. Now, as this plane's flying, what you're going to do is fly from the back of the plane. I'm going to click on this tail here. You can barely see it, but there's a white cross here. I'm going to move the tail just so you can see. There's a little white cross that says right here where I can put my box in. I'm going to move it right by the tail so I can do this. Then I'm going to put my pointer there. I'm going to unpause it and start flying. I'm going to start climbing it. So as I start climbing up, as I climb, also my airspeed's starting to drop. Keep pulling. See how the lift has gotten so much less? And in a stall, this is what's happening. You're not generating enough lift to keep this airplane in the air. All right, and it tends to roll over on one side of the airplane or the other. Now, what we can do is, we'll pause, we'll point the airplane down to gain airspeed. And you're getting more lift, but watch when I pull the nose up. I get a huge amount of lift now. What we want the kids to discover, and please don't tell them, let them discover it, lift is a factor of two things. Airspeed, which we saw, and the angle of attack. The angle of attack is the wing as it runs through the air. There's a slight angle there. That's called the angle of attack. We build the angle of attack into airplane wings. We call that the angle of incidence. That is, if you think about it, if you're saying, Tom, angle of attack, I got to have that to fly. Well, shouldn't the plane always be pulling its nose up a little bit as I'm flying? And why am I not tilted back in my seat? Well, the early pilots probably were tilted back in their seats. So what the engineers did is they took the wing itself and moved it up. Now, when I tell you moved it up, it's not by much. It's just a few degrees. But that gives you the angle of attack, because lift is dependent on both airspeed and angle of attack. Also, what's the theoretical explanation of lift? We all grew up with Bernoulli's principle. You know, increase a gas or liquid, pressure drops. And that's probably explains some of the lift. The other thought of lift is Newton's third law. Air, think of a kite. A kite only goes up in the air because you're pulling on it. You know, when the wind blows it away, if you let go of it, the kite falls down. So when you pull, as the wind's blowing, you pull against the wind, and the resulting vector causes the plane to go, the kite to go up. Same thing on a wing. And I can show you right here. There's angle of incidence, angle of attack. All right. Bernoulli's pressure, low pressure here. Newton's third law, air hits here, it goes out there, it results in push up there. They're still not absolutely certain. People argue endlessly about it. It's a good time to point to kids. Just when we think we know everything, we really don't. We understand it. We can take it in the fact that there is lift going on there, and there's certainly lower air pressure over top of the wing. But whether it's really accounted for by Bernoulli's or by Newton's third law is still a pretty interesting debate. All right. Now, so in that case, have the kids take the airplane up, stall it, figure out, and then have them point the nose down. That's the goal of this lesson. And have them, as they go down, the airspeed's going to increase because the nose is pointed down. They learned that in the first lesson. As that nose airspeed grows up, they're going to get more lift. But it's when they get the faster lift and a high angle attack, they get massive lift. And you can talk about early aircrafts used to come apart because of that. All right, let me see here. Yes. Anchi. Hello.
Yes?
Do you have a question?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
No, I think I accidentally left my... Okay, wait, here. Actually, yes, I do. Do you know how to get all the other vectors unseen? Because when I tried this, I had the green lift vectors up, but then I also had some other vectors showing.
All right, let me show you what's going on when that happens. And I've never really used the other vectors, but you absolutely can have that. So there's the vectors. If I hit underneath the question mark key, I hit slash, I can bring up all the vectors or clear them off. So right underneath the question mark, I just hit that slash. There's the lift vectors. Here's another set of vectors going this way, and then a third set. Just go back to that first set. It just toggles through the three of them.
Okay. Oh, okay, I got it.
All right. When you set the airplane, what would you about the fuel used? We'll get into that on the engineering side in the next lesson, but there's a default burn rate we use. Okay. So we just had that question. All right. Let me get the lesson 4 and possibly 5 today, and then we'll do the other lessons Wednesday. And then we'll do another webinar Tuesday and Thursday. Let me see, Tuesday of next week. And, all right. So here it is, maybe 2 Tuesdays in a row or something. All right. Let me put his hand down. All right. Then we get into drag. And we talk about drag here. There's 2 types. There's induced and there's parasitic. induced drag is that drag that we just said is the result of lift. But there's a lot more induced drag to lift. I mean, there's a lot less induced drag to lift, so we're happy to make that trade-off. Parasitic drag is the drag, go stick your hand out the window when you're going 60 miles an hour. You'll feel the air pushing against it, right? That's parasitic drag. When you are running in the beach, you decide to run in the sand, and you think, I want to cool off, I'm going to run down the water. Go run in water that's waist deep and see how fast you can go. You know, we've all experienced that. It slows us way down. So, we have those two types of drag. Now, what we also look at in this, and it's really interesting, is the flaps on an airplane. Because what that does, it does two things for you that are really helpful when you're trying to land an airplane. It slows the airplane down. Great, added some drag, it makes the wing long. It does this, by the way, the flaps make the wing wider. And a part of the wing wider. The problem is, hey, Tom, you just told me airspeed lift is a result of airspeed angle of attack. Now you're telling me it slows it down. That's decreasing airspeed. I don't want to fall out of the air. True. But because we push the wings out, it extends the wings a little bit, and the inside part of the wing on the flaps, it actually increases lift. So it does both things that we want. Slows the airplane down with drag and increases lift so the plane doesn't fall out of the sky. Now a student might ask you, well, wow, this is really great. Why don't we just have the flaps on all the time? Because it's slowing the airplane down, and also you're putting a load on those flaps that if you put flaps on at too great a speed, they'll rip, which might tear the wing, which could be a catastrophic event for the pilot. So if you look back, if I go back up in the controls here, I'll even show you this. Hang on. On this airspeed indicator, see the white? That's where you can land and take off with the flaps on, so at a slower speed than white and 40. In green is normal, no flaps. And so that's why they don't really ever want you deploying on this airplane flaps much past 85 knots. Because they're afraid the loads, what that will do to the wing of the airplane. All right. Let's go back here. Now finally, and that's what I wanted to get to on this, is how to land the airplane. First of all, it takes a while for a lot of people, so don't be frustrated if you're one of those people. Some kids will knock it right out. A lot of people don't. Okay, the other thing is I want to tell you, when landing, less is more. You don't want to be pulling the airplane. You're going to control landing that by not pointing the nose down or pointing the nose up. You control the landing with your throttle, believe it or not. And you use the nose just to either slow yourself down if you need to slow yourself down or speed yourself up. You're coming in too slowly, drop the nose down. That's why it's really important that you manage your energy well, because you don't want to be too low to the ground, too slow, and then you have to pull the nose up. You'll go right into a stall, and that'll ruin your day. All right, so let's go back in here. When we go to land, let me go ahead and pull this up for you. So let's go into settings, quick flight setup. I'm going to do a final approach, 3 nautical miles. See how it says 3 nautical there? Then I'm going to click X. So I'm coming in. All right, I'm going to take off some of these lines here. Pause. All right, right up here, you may not see it. There's a red and white screen right there. There's little red lights and little white lights. They're a path indicator. So as your pilot's flying down PAPI, so that as you're coming in to land, you want to see half red and half white. And if you see all white, overflight, that's not so bad. All red, dead. So if you're going to air, I would rather be too high and just fly around and re-fly and fly again. So I'm going to come in here. When I go to land, may not have enough time, I'm going to come in and land, and what I'm going to do is pause. See the throttle down here? I'm going to push this throttle in a little bit, not all the way. I just want it to go to about 1600. It's in the handout. Okay, so the throttle's going down for me. Not as much as I would like here. Here we go. We'll pause again. If you have a Windows machine, you can use the keys on it. Oh boy, why am I doing? Oh, I know why. Because my cross was out of my controller. I lost control of my airplane because my disk isn't in. So I'm going to jump out and restart back up. That's why you should have your disk in the machine. I'm using a diskless Mac right now for this, so that's why I don't have the disk on there. Let me go back in. This summer we'll be selling this on USB drives. You won't need the disk on your computer anymore. Take a drink of water there. Alright, let's do a quick flight setup. Final approach 3 nautical miles. I'm going to come in. Alright, you can also do this with your mouse. You roll the wheel on it. So I'm going to roll the wheel back on my mouse. I'm right at about 1600. Now, once I get my RPM, and that's this device right here, I get that RPM where I want it, around that value. Now I'm just spending the rest of the time straining myself out, keeping level flight, and just flying towards this. That's going to take it a few minutes. You can see I'm a little low because I got a lot of red lights there. I'll pull it up a little bit higher. Obviously, as you get closer to the ground, you're right on top of it. It'll go all red because you're very low to the ground. And I'm a little bit slow, but I'm still going to make it. So notice I'm not throwing it around. I'm not pointing my nose down. I'm just trying to keep the plane level. The plane is coming in, if you notice, flat right there. Really not pointing the nose down. And there's the runway. Okay, you can't see the airplane. You can only see the lessons. Oh man, why is that? Okay, let's figure out why. I'll try to shrink this down. Let me do this. Can you see it now? All right, folks. I wonder what I can do to get to that. How many people can see the airplane right now? Raise your hand. Put your hands down if you can't. If you can see the airplane right now, raise your hand. Okay, thank you very much, X-Plane. Great. Bear with me. I'll tell you what, I'm going to freeze the screen for a second. Do you see it now? Raise your hands if you see it now. No, I've got a couple folks telling me right now the video, and I'm not sure why the software is not letting me show you. The GoToWebinar software is not doing it. I showed it the whole time, and I've got my screen up here. Okay. Well, hang on one second. Can you see the airplane now on my PowerPoint presentation? Can you see that? Raise your hand if you see this King Air. Okay. Hopefully that'll do it. Okay, you shouldn't see presentation 29. This is just strange. Okay, folks, I'm not going to hold you up on this. We'll figure out my video. It will show it. I just did. But all I really wanted you to know was your altimeter on this. And again, I have no idea because my webinar software says I'm in great shape. And we'll put up another video on how to land it. How about that, folks? I'll give you another video. There is on our website on how to land. It'll show you there. But all I really want you to know is you're going to control the throttle. You're not pointing up the nose up and down. That PAPI light indicator is right on the end of the red wire. It's both red and white lights. Okay? And I cannot understand why you... I'm not even on page 29 of this. I'm on slide 62. Okay. I'm sorry. This rarely happens. I've done 4 webinars earlier today. Never have had this happen today. Thank you. Go to webinar. All right, folks. I will go ahead and we have a meeting lab Wednesday. I will post this tomorrow. And then I will also post a video link of just how to practice landing. Next, when we come in Wednesday, we'll do a stability, and then we'll go into the engineering side of this. I'll stay on. Are there any other questions? You're welcome. I apologize for the landing part, but at least the video will have it that I'm recording now, and you can watch it on the end of that too. Okay, I've got some hands up, so I'm going to assume these got questions. Yeah, Thomas, you have a question? Hey, Thomas.
Yeah, real quick. When you're doing, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well.
When you're doing some of the flight tests in the simulator, when you're working through the curriculum, what would you do about the fuel that would be burned if they did multiple long duration tests?
I would give you, there's a rate of burn that automatically comes in the program. You'll see that in Plane Maker. And if you go to lesson 9, it talks about fuel burn rate. Okay?
Got it, okay.
All right?
Thanks.
Sure. All right, Tom.
One other,
go ahead.
real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
The other question I put in the question bank, but I didn't know if you saw them, is are these going to be on the Fly to Learn website for the videos, or sort of the Dropbox account again?
I'll try the Dropbox, but I also might just stick them on YouTube. I'll get them on the
All right, sounds good.
YouTube, and we'll put them up on YouTube. All right?
Thanks.
Sure. All right, let me go to Tom here. Tom Reynolds, let me do that. Tom Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds.
Yes.
All right, great. I'm glad we got you. Finally, are hearing me. All right, good. You have a question about the flight parameters and the prize and everything?
Yes, I was just curious when they were going to announce the design parameters and what the winning team was going to get.
I believe they're announcing all that in right before the beginning of April. Okay?
Beginning of April?
Yes, sir. That's when they'll definitely give me the design parameters. I don't even know the design parameters right at this moment. So we'll just let it go at that. Because we just want to be really fair. Last year, during webinars, a comment might be made that people misconstrued. So this year, we're totally avoiding any issues so nobody has an advantage over anybody else. Okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right. Any other questions? All right, then. I'm going to go ahead and stop the webinar. Oh, wait a minute. Here's another one. Great. I love questions. Yes, what's your question?
In the packet, I see that you added some videos. I'm not sure how you can actually view them.
What's your question? I'm sorry.
In the student packet, you said that you have some videos, like a landing video or a takeoff video.
Here.
I'm not sure where.
I'll show you. You want to see where they are?
Yes.
Go to Fly to Learn. I know. Can you see this on the website now? Do you see any kind of...
The Fly to Learn website?
Yeah, do you see it on my screen right now?
No.
I don't know why that's not showing on the screen. Stupid computer.
Your screen is frozen, apparently.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't understand. I try it now. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Great. All right, here it is. Here's the Fly to Learn. Now go to Educators and go to, under Educators, go under Videos.
Okay.
And there you go. Here's how to take off, and here's how to land. All right? So if you click on those, you'll get them. Okay?
Okay.
For everybody else that's still here, and we got most everybody here, you can see a video on landing as well as taking off, and I will gladly show people right now what I was talking about on that landing. Now that you can you see, hang on one second here. Can you see the X-plane? Can you see the X-plane plane now again?
Yes.
Okay. When I go to land, if you'll see here, W here. Here is that runway, that silver runway. You can see red and white on there. It should be half red, half white on each side. If it's all white, you're flying too high. All red, you're flying too low. So all red, dead. All white, overflight. But the instrument, this RPM gauge, you want to, I'm a little bit slow actually at the RPM. It's right under 1500. You want to be 1600. And just fly the plane straight. It'll slowly be coming down. All right? And if you practice that, it'll take you about 10 minutes to land. All right, okay?
All right.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and mute you. Anybody else have a question? Again, if you go into Fly to Learn, go under Educators, select the lessons. You can get the lessons, you can get the videos. I had some PowerPoint slides. Here's some webinars we've done in the past. All right. Here's lessons 1, 2, 6, 10. Older webinars, but they certainly will work for you. Okay? All right, we got another hand. Let's see here. I'm putting everybody's hands down. Raise your hand again if you have a question. Hey, Stephen, you want to talk Raspberry Pi? Great. Give me a second here. We'll talk about it in just a moment. All right, I got another teacher here. We want to talk about some other technology, which is awesome. So anybody wants to stay and join us, we'll talk about Raspberry Pis at the end of this and in the classroom. Okay. Any other questions? Again, you can see the webinars. You can start on those if you want to hand them out to your kids. All right? Well, if we have no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.